Good evening, everyone. My name is Kathy Greggs. I'm the co-founder and president of Fayetteville Police Accountability Community Task Force. Tonight, we are honored to have Democracy NC, Manny Diaz, discuss where are our maps. Now, I know everyone has been looking at how this is looking for us in North Carolina with these maps, and we know that there's going to be a lawsuit. However, what we don't know is the entity of how it affects each community and district area. There's 5 maps. I think Manny will go over, and then he'll probably go into more detail of what redistricting really is and how we should vote. And vote matters, of course, because if we don't vote the right way, we're going to continue to get gerrymandering and redlining and everything else that you could think of in your community. So I'll go ahead and let Manny Diaz from Democracy NC facilitate this and discuss where are our maps. Thank you, Manny.
No, thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Fayetteville PACT, for inviting me once again to present in terms of redistricting. It's a very important topic, and it's a topic that is pretty complicated. It's easy to get confused about it, but the more you read about it, the more you're engaged in that particular process, the easier it becomes to follow. So let me just share my screen. And you said it while I'm sharing, while I'm getting everything ready from my end, everyone, you said it best, Kathy. There is going to be a lawsuit. There already is a lawsuit filed by the Southern Coalition for Social Justice. They partner up with the NAACP, and they're really criticizing the process. What I want everyone to know, that the one thing that we have to understand about redistricting is that whenever you're talking about a statewide level, and even sometimes at the local level, that process is not transparent, that process is not inclusive, and it's sometimes very, very rushed because they want to make sure that they hold on to power as quickly as they possibly can. They don't want to give anyone else time to process the information that they're giving, to process what they're seeing and what they're hearing. They want to make sure that they just ram it through. So with that being said, that's exactly what the General Assembly has been doing these past couple of months. So I urge everyone to keep in mind whenever you're voting in 2022, what your representative did in terms of redistricting. What did they say? And more importantly, what did they do? Because what I'm seeing from the General Assembly is that they're more concerned about holding on to power than making sure that our democracy is respected at the state and local level. So please just keep that in mind. Kathy says it all the time. We have to take back our house and we have to vote them out for sure. So let's get started with this presentation. I know it's a heavy, very presentation heavy event, but there is no easier way to talk about redistricting. I really have to show you, you have to see these maps and what it actually means. Whenever we're talking about redistricting or gerrymandering, we're talking about those topics from a nonpartisan perspective. So we're not talking about what benefits Republicans. We're not talking about what benefits Democrats or independents. We're just simply talking about what benefits the people. We want maps where individuals can elect their leaders, and it's not the other way around. We want politicians to work for the vote. They have to go out into communities and really obtain your vote, persuade you, be in the community, listen to what you have to say. If you draw maps in a way where you know you're going to get elected, you're not going to see that politician, and that's just a fact. So that goes both ways. We are coming at it from a nonpartisan perspective. Now, defining redistricting, as I mentioned, can be difficult. So whenever we're talking about the community, we have to keep it as simple as possible because it is easy to get lost in translation. It's difficult to wrap your head around what redistricting and gerrymandering is. And those terms I'll be using exchangeably. So please just keep up with that. And then again, it's difficult to explain. It's just a hard topic to discuss. Even politicians themselves in elected office have a hard time keeping up with what how redistricting is done and what it actually means to your everyday voter. Here's how I like to explain it. This is just a sample ballot that I found online. Just think of it this way. You're talking to your friend, you're talking to your church, your fellow church member, and you're talking about the most recent election, right? You talk about who you voted for president, who you voted for the U.S. Senate, for the U.S. House, all of that good stuff. For the most part, that remains the same, right? If you're in the U.S., this will look the same. If you're in North Carolina, this is going to look the same. As you keep on going down to certain elections, like House of Representatives, for example, or your NC Senate district or your NC Senate House, you'll figure out very quickly that it looks different. Oh, I didn't have that person as an option. Maybe you've been seeing a lot of ads whenever you go to your friend's house about a certain politician, but when it's time for you to vote, you don't see that person in your ballot, right? It changes. So what that means, all that means is that districts determine who represents you as a voter. It's impossible for one person to represent hundreds of thousands of individuals. It's just not, it's not feasible. So it's broken down into districts, and those districts can change. And depending on how they change, that determines who represents you at all levels. We're talking about city council and other local offices. We're talking about the North Carolina General Assembly and the U.S. Congress. Even whenever I say the North Carolina General Assembly, I'm referring to the NC House and the NC Senate. Both are broken down into districts. The U.S. Senate is not. But again, just keep in mind, the district determines who represents you. These districts are drawn by politicians themselves at all levels. We've been hearing a lot of discussions in Fayetteville about the city council redrawing their own districts, right? The NC House draws their own districts. The NC Senate draws their own districts, right? Oftentimes, the interest of these individuals at all levels will overshadow democracy and will overshadow your vote. This process, which should be quite simple, to be honest, and it's pretty self-explanatory, it's taken in a partisan context, where they just utilize it to make sure their party is consistently winning elections. Now, whenever you're drawing these maps, whenever you're looking at these maps, there are rules to follow. They can't just do whatever they want with those maps, although sometimes it does look that way. They have to keep certain rules in mind, especially in regards to the Voting Rights Act. The Voting Rights Act protects the creation of majority-minority districts, which contain a majority of a racial or linguistic community. And after a series of U.S. Supreme Court decisions in the 1960s, the concept of one person, one vote became widely spread, essentially saying the districts have to be equally in proportion. Every vote has to weigh the same in the grand scheme of things. Districts must be more or less equal in population in order to not violate the principle of equal protection. Again, it's all about population. Politics is more than just talking about specific topics and issues. Politics is a game of numbers. And these rules that they have to follow are about that aspect of politics, the politics of numbers. Right? So whenever we're talking about numbers, these are the rules that follows in regards to that. In terms of local districts, you have to have a plus or minus 10% deviation, which is essentially a percentage change in population in a specific district. And that's for local districts. For state districts, that is a plus or minus 5% deviation, right? So it can't really go past that level. And then for the US Congress, it has to be as equal as practical. And whenever you're drawing large congressional maps of the US Congress, that can get pretty complicated pretty quickly. So they have to make it work the best way they possibly can. So that's why oftentimes you see certain counties being split. No one likes to see their county being split. No one likes to see their communities be split. But sometimes in order to make the numbers work, that it kind of has to be done. But we just have to make sure it's done for practical reasons and not for a partisan advantage. So it's always important to keep up with that. So we briefly talked about what redistricting is. We briefly talked about the numbers. We briefly talked about the rules in general, and I sped through that. right? There is a whole lot more literature that you can read and catch up upon once you're doing your own individual research. But in order for us to keep it simple, that is the general overview of the rules they have to follow and what redistricting actually is, which is, again, the drawing of the maps to see who represents you, where do you belong, right? What does that district actually look like? And I wanted to share with you several maps, very local, and then we're going to continue to move at a state and congressional level. The first map I want to share with you is the Cumberland County Commissioners. This is what the county commissioners map looks like in Cumberland County. There's only 2 districts, and then those 2 districts have multiple representatives. Now, I've been hearing a lot from the Southern Coalition for Social Justice that this is a very weird system to have in Cumberland County, a county that it's very urbanized. Essentially, the bulk of people live in the Fayetteville area, and the majority of people, from my understanding, live in urban centers. So this system right here for an urban area is very, very rare. You typically see this in a rural community, right? So based on how these maps are drawn, it doesn't really matter how the population changes, because it's never really going to be enough for it to trigger a redistricting or the redrawing of the maps. Remember that it has to meet a certain criteria of deviation in order for that map to be redrawn. In this case, the deviation in those 2 districts is only 4%. So this map right here will remain the same. County commissioners in Cumberland County do not have to redraw the maps. I really don't see a deviation changing so drastically in these 2 districts to where it will trigger the need to redraw them. I could be wrong though. Historically, maybe it has happened. From what I'm seeing, since Cumberland County grew as a whole, only a 4% deviation happened here, which doesn't require the maps to be redrawn. So again, this is what your county commissioner's map looks like. It would be pretty interesting to see the opinion of county commissioners to have district-based county commissioner elections. I think that's a different conversation for a different time. Again, we're moving forward to another map here in Cumberland County that's district-based, or it's a hybrid, I should say, of at-large elections and district-wide. This is your county board of elections, right? District 5. I'm sorry, not county board of elections, county board of education, my mistake. District 5 is quite large, taking the east side of Cumberland County. This is the Hope Mills area, and then Fayetteville, Spring Lake, Fort Bragg, the western part of Cumberland County is taken by districts 4, 3, 2, and 1. This is just what the current map looks like. And I'm sorry that this is quite blurry, the deviation for County Board of Elections is 18.38%, meaning that this map right here has to be redrawn. And if you were paying attention to the previous map, you noticed something. This map, which is countywide, doesn't have to be redrawn. This map that's also countywide, this has to be redrawn, right? And I think it's just because of how the system is based on both of them. This one being only 2 with at-large and certain at-large individuals, and then this one being directly district-based elections with only a couple here and there that are at-large. Look at that, 18.38%. That surpasses that deviation requirement that we saw at the beginning. So this map again has to be redrawn. Lastly, Fayetteville City Council. This is what the current map looks like. District 2 is the eastern part of the city, and then everything else going west side is divided between the rest of the districts, 9 in total, right? With the deviation, it's 28.99% over. So it really needs to be redrawn. This is one of the worst ones that we've seen in North Carolina. And again, that's according to the Southern Coalition for Social Justice. So the Fayetteville City Council right now is redrawing these maps. This is what it looks like. They have to redraw them by law, essentially, right? So those conversations are ongoing. From my understanding, they're close to being done. And there have been some talks about these districts not being representative. Well, at the current time, they're not because of population changes. As they redraw them, this deviation will be fixed, and you have a chance to make sure that your district is working for you and your neighborhood and your community, right? So always being engaged in a redistricting process is going to be key. Again, Fayetteville City Council, from my understanding, is almost done. But there's still time to provide your input and really make sure that the process is working for voters and not individual politicians. 28.99% deviation, like I mentioned earlier. Now, that was the very localized maps. At the very beginning, I mentioned that redistricting happens at all levels, right? To the US Congress, all the way down to City Council. And there have been several proposed maps for US Congress. Many of them were quite atrocious. Some of them split Cumberland County into different ways. And one map that I saw split Fayetteville right in the middle. So half of Fayetteville will be in one congressional district. The other half would be in a different congressional district. Now those maps did not pass, thankfully, but the map that was accepted by the North Carolina Senate isn't any better. It's still quite bad, and this is what it looks like right here. I will go back to the problems in just a second. This is what the current map looks like, right? Cumberland County is right here, being taking part on the 8th congressional district. Here's Robeson County in the 9th, 7th district. This is what it looks like. For US Congress, this is the map that passed. And I know that I skipped several maps, and I really want to speak about this one because whenever we're talking about redistricting, whenever we're talking about gerrymandering in general, people's mind automatically jumps to US Congress. That's where everybody is thinking. Well, I wanted to show you this before because this one right here just passed very recently. I've been talking about it today. It passed the NC Senate along partisan lines, and it's going to be sent to the House for approval. From my understanding, there is no different opinions between the NC Senate and the NC House. More than likely, it's going to pass, and this is the map that's going to be implemented whenever it comes to the U.S. Congress. Here is Cumberland County. Here is Fayetteville. We're being paired up with all of these central counties right here, which include Harnett County, Sampson, Johnson County, and part of Wayne County. So this would be our new district over here. If you saw on the old map, you saw Cumberland County, and then it wrapped around going west side. Now this is what the new district might look like if it passes the House. And again, from what I'm hearing, it will. Robeson County gets paired up with Wilmington. This area right here remains, right? So part of the 8th and part of the 9th is being combined. There is a specific source called the Princeton Gerrymandering Project. That source, being completely nonpartisan, rated this map, gave it an F rating in terms of partisan fairness. So this map right here that passed the NC Senate, it's not about what we've spoken earlier about making sure the power isn't diluted, about maps not being used for partisan gains. This is exactly that. This map is for partisan gain. This map right here is not a representation of North Carolina. It has ignored several aspects of what people have been asking. Many people in Cumberland County and Robeson County and then surrounding areas asked for a Sand Hills district, which will be this central part right here. That has been ignored, so on and so forth. Let me zoom in because I really want to show individuals what this map would look like at a regional level. So here is Fayetteville, right? It incorporates Cumberland County. It goes into Harnett. Harnett is split, parts of Wayne, Johnson County, and then it drops down. I believe this is Sampson County right over here. So that would be our cluster of counties where we belong in. Now I do want to go back since we originally touched US Congress. The other map that I've been paying attention to is the NC House, and that is this map right here. This is the map that has been approved by the NC House. Again, from what I saw, it was through partisan lines. A lot of the amendments proposed by individuals in the General Assembly to try to make this map make more sense and be more fair have been ignored by the leadership in the General Assembly and in the NC House, to be more specific. So this is what it looks like. It is a complete, it's all over the place, to keep it simple and to keep it basic, right? It's all over the place. The Princeton Gerrymandering Project also gave this map an F rating in terms of partisan fairness, because it's not a map that ensures one person, one vote, and ensures that people elect their officials. This map right here is one that would allow the leadership to hold on to that leadership, again, for partisan gains. Whenever we zoom in to Cumberland County, this is what it looks like. This will be the new districts in Cumberland County. This over here has changed, right? This district went all the way down, and then for the most part, Hope Mills and then a little bit of the surrounding areas in Hope Mills were one individual district. So it has changed only a little bit. From my understanding from here and from other elected individuals at the General Assembly, this map right here has changed quite a bit in areas across North Carolina. Let me give you one example. This district right here, Representative Graham from Robeson County had major concerns about what this map looks like for Robeson County. He emphasized, or he presented an amendment that would ensure that a member of the Lumbee Tribe of North Carolina would be present at the General Assembly as a representative from that area, a tradition that has been happening since the 70s. His argument was that this map would not ensure that. So his changes were rejected by the General Assembly leadership. That's just a tiny example of changes that we've seen throughout North Carolina. Again, not for the benefit of the people, but for the benefit of only a few elected officials. Now we can actually go back to the problems that I've mentioned. I know I kind of sped through those maps. In the beginning, I mentioned this process has not been fair, and it hasn't. There were only 13 public hearings in a state of over 10 million individuals. These hearings, these discussions, these drawings, they were not well advertised, and it was lack of accommodation for non-English speakers. In one of the public hearings, I had to interpret for a community partner because there were no interpreters available in order for them to speak. He went to this hearing hoping he could find someone that he knew to interpret, and luckily I was there. Had I not been there, this individual could have not expressed his opinions about the redistricting process and the maps. Again, emphasizing that this process has not been very inclusive. Now, this has changed. They did have certain hearings after some of the maps were presented, but I still left this point right here because you can't call those public hearings in reaction to the maps. They were rushed. They were held in the middle of the day, and there were only a handful of locations. One at the General Assembly, so you had to drive to the General Assembly to make a comment, or you had to drive to Wilmington to make a comment, which I had to do 2 hours away. It was closer for me to go to the General Assembly than it was to go to Wilmington, but they only took a certain amount of individuals in the General Assembly, so I had to go to a different location. Whenever I was in Wilmington for the original public hearings, right, before the maps were released, that room, that auditorium was packed. Many people spoke for a fair process, for an inclusive process, and for a process that emphasized the voters, not politicians. These two hearings in response to the maps, there was only 4 people in Wilmington that spoke against these maps. We didn't have enough time to analyze the data. We did not have enough time to kind of get everything together to understand what we were seeing. And even though we didn't understand the data very well, we understood one thing, and that is that General Assembly clearly had no intention in keeping North Carolinians informed, and clearly had no intention and making sure the people the people's comments were actually taken into consideration whenever it came to drawing these maps. That, my friends, is a brief overview of redistricting. These are what the maps will look like. I can go back so people can see them more closely, but they are available for the people of North Carolina, but it's hard to find. So you can always contact Fayetteville PACT or contact myself, and we can get you these maps. I'll stop right now because from my understanding, we have a question, Kathy.
Yeah, thank you, Manny Diaz from Democracy NC. I have a question from Carrie Williams. She simply said almost similar to what you said, but she said, my question may seem simple, but where and when do we as citizens get a chance to vote on or even become aware of such huge changes? And you did quote the fact that when we went to the hearings, they were all in Raleigh, except for one that was at Fayetteville Tech. And it was during the hours, of course, people were just getting off of work, right? And some people couldn't make it because it was at Fayetteville Tech school. And then, as you said, there were nobody to interpret, nor was there sign language available, correct? So the accessibility was all off. And, you know, the question is, okay, we have a lawsuit. You spoke on the fact of having a issue today with WRL News as a group in front of the General Assembly about why is discriminatory for these maps. What else can we do as citizens to go further? Pretty much is what she's saying about this change, because for Fayetteville, for Cumberland County, for us to connect with Charlotte, how does that look with the demographics? Like, how would that affect the demographics? But how do citizens move forward to contest this? That's the question.
That's a very good question. And to the person who made it, if you're feeling confused about all of this, that is the normal feeling to have. This process hasn't been made to where your average voter, your person that works 9 to 5 is able to understand. This has been rushed. This wasn't well advertised. This wasn't done in a way that was inclusive to real working people across North Carolina. Again, this is to benefit politicians. This isn't to benefit voters. What we can do at this very moment is call your representatives. Call your representatives, whether it is a Democrat or a Republican. You need to let them know how you feel about this process. And if you're having issues, you think you don't really understand it very well, there are broad talking points that you can use, such as this process isn't inclusive, this process isn't fair. What I've been hearing is that these maps are not good for the people of North Carolina. I need you to stand with democracy and the people of North Carolina, politician. Don't focus on the political career of certain individuals. As I mentioned, one map has to be sent to the NC House. The other map has to be sent to the NC Senate. So contact your state representative and your state senator. Cumberland County is blessed in a way because we have multiple individuals who have leadership in the redistricting committee. Ben Clark is in the redistricting committee. You can always contact him. Representative Soka, he's in the redistricting committee. Representative Billy Richardson, he's in the representative in the redistricting committee. So we have a lot of representatives from one county to having an important role in these decisions. Hold them accountable, right? Talk to Soka, talk to Richardson, talk to Ben Clark. You as a voter, you are their constituents. They'll listen to you. Right now, what we're seeing is more than likely, they're still going to rush this. These maps will probably get passed, let's be honest, within either this week or next week. And these maps are going to go to court. There already is a lawsuit filed, like I mentioned at the very beginning, by the Southern Coalition for Social Justice in cooperation with the North Carolina NAACP. They're more concerned about just wasting money in lawsuits than defending democracy.
And that is correct. And that's what I said. Why are we wasting money, taxpayer money? Because it's your money being wasted that we have to keep going back and forth with these maps. Because I believe we went through a lawsuit before. Is that not correct, Manny?
That is correct. Multiple
And
lawsuits.
and do you know how much it was that actually cost us to go through that lawsuit process?
No,
Okay.
I
Can
don't.
you
But
can
let
you
me.
try to look that up? And then also, what do we do from here for election?
So what we do from here is that we have to wait what these maps are going to look like. I can always just give you that information at a later date, Kathy, so everybody is aware how much it was spent in litigation. But litigation at this level about these topics is not cheap. So it's you as a voter, you as a taxpayer, footing the bill for these lawsuits, right? Right now, what we have to do is just wait and see which maps pass. Again, more than likely they're going to be the ones that I'm showing you. And then we have to see what the courts say, whether these maps are able to be utilized for next year, or are we going to continue to use the maps that we currently have right now. So whenever you're looking at not the NC House per se, but Congress, which it will be these, right? These are the maps that we may have to utilize if a court says, look, these maps are pretty bad. And again, there is that criticism about the process. There is that criticism coming from this lawsuit. So it's being criticized all across the board. Do we have anything else, Kathy? I did, however, while we're getting that together, I see that you're looking at the chat. Um,
Yes, Manny, I wanted us to discuss the Vote Yes campaign that's going on in Fayetteville right now. And please show us the map, how it affects the Vote Yes campaign.
Sure.
And
So, yeah. So this is the map right here that we see. This is city council. And we can speak, we can hold a different event speaking specifically about Vote Yes Fayetteville. That is a very local matter that impacts Fayetteville, only Fayetteville, not Cumberland County as a whole, to where they're trying to get rid of some of these districts and have a combination of only 5 districts and then 4 at-large candidates. That specific campaign was struck down with the Department of Justice back in the day because of a violation of the Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. Section 5 has been struck down because of the Shelby County case back in 2013. So they have free reign to make that change. And what they're saying is that they're criticizing, the drawing of maps specifically. They're saying that, these districts, they're utilized for political gain, and that's why we should go to at large, or at least a combination of both, which we've been saying the whole time. Yes, redistricting is utilized as a political gain, but there is a fix to it. We could have independent redistricting, right, at all levels, from statewide to very local, to take politicians' self-interest out of the equation. So there is a fix to that. So the fear here is that by changing the structure of city council from 9 districts to 5 districts and not at large, that communities of color will be disempowered. Their voting power is going to be diluted. But moving away from race, this over here will also disempower voters from lower economic groups. Our poor community is going to be disadvantaged because a lot of these districts incorporate some of the poor areas in our city. So our poor community across the board, across all races, will suffer. And then, of course, based on the history, based on the DOJ has said, Black and brown voters will also suffer as well. This is nothing but a power grab here in the city of Fayetteville, Kathy, to where ex-politicians, they want to get control again. They want to make sure that their people are the ones running for office. They want to make sure that they control city council at a deeper level, right? And this isn't a defense. This isn't a defense because we are against it. We are opposing Vote Yes Fayetteville. This isn't a defense to city council members per se, but a defense of the structure. What if they argue that in order to make Fayetteville move forward, when we need to make this change? I argue that in order for Fayetteville to move forward, we need bold leadership, that they're not afraid to attack the status quo. They're not afraid of making people with money angry. They need bold leadership that can push the limits and really make Fayetteville work. Change in Fayetteville is possible, and there's nothing wrong with wanting a better future for your community. But that change is only going to empower the few and disempower the many. At-large elections, Kathy, require a different kind of candidate and different kind of finances. Your average person is not going to be able to adequately compete at large. That's where that concern about lower income voters being disadvantaged comes from. And again, there's a whole history and context about this change that deals with the Department of Justice to why we are concerned about this specific topic right here. And what I like to say is that don't fall for the talking points that they're sharing. They're trying to spin this and make it seem pro-voter. This isn't pro-voter. This is anti-voter. All they want to do is get power and control city council at a deeper level, right? At-large candidates are going to be more concerned about making sure they can afford the election than listening to disadvantaged communities across Fayetteville. Again, Kathy, I don't want to talk too much about it. We can have a specific topic about Vote Yes Fayetteville, because I can talk about it all day and why it's bad for voters. All I got to say is that don't sign the petition, throw it in the trash. That's where it belongs. And if it makes it to the ballot, vote no.
Yes, and I'm in agreement with that. If you find it, please throw it away, because it is definitely garbage. Like, some of these maps that were made are garbage. So I'm going to go into a comment that Pamela Carver did say. Do you think that they're trying to draw these maps kind of like the Board of Education maps, right? So they won't have to meet the percentage. So they, the percentage needing to redistricting, giving the people of Fayetteville less representation. So you think they're trying to draw it kind of similar to the Board of Education maps, so they won't have to worry about that percentage? Or do you think they're just trying to do like other cities that have city at large council? Because some of them do.
Yeah. I think that you meant county commissioners. This one right here, because look at that. Cumberland County change, and this map doesn't have to be redrawn, right? They have been criticizing the map drawing process, and by them I mean the Vote Yes Fayetteville group. But we still have districts, right? That self-interest isn't going to go away, and more than likely they'll draw it like this to disempower people, to make sure that their people are the one winning election in Fayetteville. Now, they like to point to other municipalities that have at large, like Durham, like Raleigh, like Charlotte. Go and talk to the communities in those areas. They have huge problems with their city council all the time, right? They don't see their city council. They feel like they're not being heard by their city council. But more importantly, the structure of a city council really depends on local analysis and local opinions and local context. You can't compare Fayetteville to Durham or Raleigh, different histories and different contexts in regards to this. This was struck down by the Department of Justice because of the violation to the Voting Rights Act. That's not going to go away, right? So if it works in Raleigh, which I don't think it does, that's on them. That's a local matter. We have to focus on what works for Fayetteville. And again, it's not a defense to Fayetteville City Council, it's a defense on the structure. We need bold leadership, not a change to the structure.
That is correct. And you know what? I'm not going to just say bold leadership. We need structure, leadership as well, because we can be bold and rant, right? But we got to still have some structure where you know what you're ramping about, and some type of framework and policy transformation work pretty much versus talk, right? So I do have a comment that Pam Wade said. She said hers went straight into the trash can when she saw the petition. Pam Wade.
Beautiful, Miss Pam.
So,
thank you for doing that.
I mean, at the end of the day, right? If we don't vote, right, and if we sit here and complain about what's really going on, and we don't vote, that's what really counts. Like, your voice at that poll will help us not be where we are right now with these maps, right? And We know that things happen in secrecy at the General Assembly. We know that things happen in secrecy behind our city council. We know that it happens at our county commissioners. I mean, we know that they're going to continue to say, yeah, let's go ahead and let them come and speak. But we already know what we're going to do, because that's pretty much what happened with these maps. They already knew how they was going to draw these maps. They already knew who they was going to allow on a committee to do these maps. They already knew it wasn't going to be a nonpartisan. They already knew that these maps was going to affect the poor population. They already knew that they was going to put it back into the gerrymandering, redlining, right back to the same way we are right now with these maps. The question is, when do our democracy matters? Because like, we're paying for this. We're paying for this time for them to get a consultant to tell us how to draw the maps. We're paying for the time for them to get a lawsuit going. We're paying for the time of them burning oil, midnight oil, just to go ahead and do these maps. But at the end of the day, no one listened to anyone at the hearings. No one took in anything that was requested from the people, and the people voted them in. So how do we, where do we go from here? Because today you did the press conference in front of the General Assembly. We have that. Then we also have the lawsuit, and we don't know what date that's going to go in. Now, what day does the city council, you can go back to Fayetteville. So what day is their timeline for the city council for their maps? Do you have their timeline?
I don't have their timeline, but from my understanding, Kathy, they're almost done with their maps, right? They have an election March, April, so they really want to get this out of the way so people can start filing officially. They should be done sometime soon. Let's just leave it at that. And let me just provide more context to what you're saying, Kathy, about a press conference. Democracy NC, the NAACP, the ACLU, El Pueblo, and other organizations. No disrespect to them. This just leave in my mind of who was actually there, because it was a coalition of organizations. Did a press conference today in front of the General Assembly criticizing the redistricting process here in North Carolina. Because, we're looking at Fayetteville right now. I really want to just point to you guys, to everybody watching this, and to everybody who watches in the future. Look at this hot mess. Look at this map, right? Look at this map right here for the U.S. Congress. This isn't North Carolina. It's not what it should be. Again, both maps receive an F in terms of partisan fairness. These are politicians choosing their voters, not the other way around. That's what all of this is. So we held that press conference. We called them out. We're asking for more transparency. We're asking for more accountability. And we are asking for democracy to matter here in North Carolina, because what I'm seeing at all levels is that they don't care about democracy. All they care about is their political careers.
Totally understand. And I'm trying to open it up now to see how these maps look right now for the city of Fayetteville. So I'll post this in there of exactly where they are with these maps when it comes to the city of Fayetteville, and everybody can go in the chat and just kind of, browse through this website for the actual maps in the city. So the question, I'm asked one more question. I don't see any questions in the chat. I believe there's just comments. I did post the voting schedule that's coming up next year. I have people that say, thank you for the information. So what do you think let's go to, we can have as many activist groups, right? 20, 30 organizations. I think it was way more organizations that did the last lawsuit, right? Do we need to just go ahead and just say what we really need to say is vote everybody out? Because I really think at this point we need to do a clean sweep through the whole assembly. I mean, the only people that should be left is the custodians that work there, that clean, and maybe a couple of people that answer the phone. I think everybody just needs to go home and just, like I said, go home, because obviously we have lost the real meaning of democracy. And the minute that we take democracy from the people as leaders, we are no longer public servants. That is when we become a selfish person and a selfish official versus a selfless official. And the thing is, at the end of the day, some of these officials may go in these seats for 4 years, 5 years, and then move up. And next thing you know, we're stuck in this community of Charlotte that doesn't even have the demographics of Fayetteville, right? And the demographics of that is two different things. And then how does it look for Charlotte and Fayetteville to be connected when it comes to the income median, right? Because that's what I was looking at. Like, how does that look with $7.25 versus how much does Charlotte get per minimum? They went up on their minimum wage, right? And then how does it look also, you know, for me to rent in Charlotte versus Fayetteville?
Mhm.
So, you know, we need, and like Pam said, we need term limits. Yes, we need term limits and age limits. We definitely need age limits. Okay. Some people should not go past a certain age and still be in offices. Like, we have to do age limits and term limits, right? And we need to do it at the local level, not just the General Assembly. Because
Right.
what we're doing is allowing people to go from seat to seat to seat to seat, and they haven't did anything but harm the people. So, you know, as I was saying for the demographics is how, you know, I don't know. When I looked at this map, I was like, how do we intersect Charlotte with Fayetteville? Like, I don't understand why the Sand Hills was a problem. I don't understand why we're trying to connect Charlotte with Cumberland County. I mean, that part just got me the most. Like, Charlotte and Cumberland County are not the same demographics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not
And
even close.
if it confuses you, you know, as a voter, that's their intent, right? They're not trying to make it make sense. All they want to do is to make sure that the maps match what they want, not what benefits the people. So you can say, Kathy, we gotta vote them all out, because I believe that 100%. We gotta vote them all out. And this isn't an issue about right versus left, Democrat versus Republican. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about real accountability, real democracy, and real want for change, because we can have change in Fayetteville, in Cumberland County, and in North Carolina, but that requires the will, and you got to have that will. So if you don't have it, just go home.
There we go. And that's what I've been saying this whole year. Go home, people. Go home. And it's another thing that I must reflect off of something as a leader. And even when I was in the army, and I used to tell my soldiers this all the time, I'm here to serve you, to show you what it is to be a leader. And I take the torch and I pass it back to you. I don't want to be here as a leader that long, because leaders are supposed to actually show other people how to lead, right? It's not just I lead and sit here the whole time and consume myself. We got to pass the torch. We got to do some mentorship. We got to do some type of, you know, hey, come and, you know, shadow me so I can show you what it's like. And then you can take over. Like, I mean, because now that is building the future. That is showing the transformation. That is showing what you just said, transparency. That's showing accountability and responsibility to pass that torch. And we have a lot of people that's sitting here that's getting paid, even if it's $10, you still getting paid, and you're not doing what's right for the people. So I question the fact, and this is something maybe Manny you could bring up, but even though we're doing a lawsuit, I really think there got to be somewhere in the oath, in the oath of office, where we can actually do some ethics complaint against the act of the, and we have people that's going against the people, right? Because it says that you're supposed to, you know, allegiance to the Constitution of the United States. So what I'm saying is there a way that we can probably add that, or maybe you can write that down and go back to the group, because I'm with the group as well, but maybe have a conversation with Democracy and see about that, because that's something that I really think that should happen next. We should be doing some ethics complaints here.
I see what you're saying. It kind of makes sense to me, but I don't know the logistics or the inner workings of that particular topic. So, you know, I think that requires those conversations, Kathy, to see where we go with it. But let me tell you right now, right? If we're talking about an ethics violation, because these politicians don't care about the people, I mean, come on. Straight, they really don't care about the voters. And I want to go back to one of the comments that was said, right? How can we vote them out based on these maps? If you want to change this, if you want to change what North Carolina looks like, you first have to change what, this looks like. And I don't mean the structure. I don't mean getting rid of 9 districts. 9 districts in Fayetteville works. What I'm talking about is getting that bold leadership, getting a better process in your town, in your city, and then going up. It's got to be a grassroots movement, right? Change requires not only voting, but showing up when you need to show up, right? And oftentimes, a lot of these rooms are empty, right? No one is paying attention. Let me tell you right now, a politician will act differently behind closed doors in private than than when, you know, whenever they are in public. And let me just put this out, Kathy. I've heard many politicians in Cumberland County who oppose vote yes Fayetteville, but they don't want to make a public statement saying that they oppose vote yes Fayetteville. So shame on those individuals. If you really opposed it, you would have made a comment by now.
Right, that part. And then also when people say they oppose, right? They oppose certain maps, but won't say it in public. Well, I didn't like how he drew that map. And then they sitting right beside them the next day, or taking a picture,
Right.
or taking a picture, or having a photo op, you know, maybe even having lunch. I don't know, but everything should be definitely, you know, I agree with Carrie Williams. Everything should definitely be in public, but you know, we have these spaces that like to be dark, just like the dark web. So people would like to be in those dark spaces and make decisions while you're sleeping, by the way, and sometimes while you're awake, but just in dark rooms.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I know there's frustration. I can sense it in the comments, and that is the right feeling to have, in my opinion, because this has been a hot mess of a process. This hasn't been inclusive. This hasn't been open. And that's where the courts come in place. And I'm hoping that the groups who are pushing that lawsuit are victorious and defending democracy, right? But again, if you want to change what North Carolina looks like, you really have to start at the very local level and push up. That's where change comes from.
That's right. Because like, I mean, I've been at every hearing and I've been doing every comment, you know, and I've been up there to General Assembly just as well as Manny, you know, Fayetteville PACT, you know, we're just a little entity that, you know, is going up there, you know, advocating for people. So we need the people to advocate as well. We need the same voices that go and vote. Okay. We need the same voices that go and make a complaint with their city because their trash bin hasn't been removed. We need the same people that say their sewer is overflowing. Okay. That make those comments, that need to make the same comments of accountability, because I mean, we have to have some serious transparency and accountability. And if you're making complaints about just a sewer, but you can't go and complain about these maps, I really got a problem. I'm going to question your priorities, because the maps is going to determine a lot of things and a lot of factors on your sewer. Just so you know, who is going to be the one to actually take care of your sewer, who's going to take care of that recycling bin, and who's going to take care of the ordinance and your zoning. So, you know, that comes with the maps. And then we also still have, of course, the redlining and gerrymandering and gentrification that's occurring here, right here in Fayetteville. I believe over there, what, District 3, if I'm not mistaken, and 4, where Murchison Road Cordon, where that goes to show you how they're pushing the people out of that area so they can gentrify it. So we have to look around that too in Fayetteville. There's a lot of gentrification that people are not paying attention to, and the taxes are going up for your property and the taxes are going up for the city. But you know, no one is going to the budget meetings like we are. No one's making comment. No one's doing that. So I say this to everyone that's listening, that if you really want change, like he just said, systemic change here, you're going to have to go and have that voice. You're going to have to go and step in that room and make it uncomfortable, because no one at this point should be comfortable that's in our offices. All of them. Everybody should be very much uncomfortable. Okay. And if they're not, then it's a problem, because the people are uncomfortable. And if your people are uncomfortable, you should be uncomfortable. Okay. So we need to make sure we hold them accountable. And I really appreciate Democracy NC coming tonight and showing us what these maps look like, and showing us why we have to do a real lawsuit, unfortunately, and pay and take your money, your taxpayer money, to do this once again. And we'll be here again and probably 10 years from now doing the same thing, just so you know, until you vote them out, until you go and vote. Tell your people to vote, because I'm going to ask Manny this question, and everybody probably want to get off because they'll probably run scared. Manny, how many people in Cumberland County voted for local election?
For local elections in Cumberland County, look, I don't have the number in front of me, but let me tell you right now, it wasn't a great turnout. It was not a great turnout in municipalities and like in Spring Lake and Hope Mills, pretty much on par with 2019. But I can give the numbers for 2019, the last municipal elections, including Fayetteville. Kathy, I think we had single digit turnout, 9%, maybe, if that, maybe 8%, but I know it wasn't double digits.
Exactly. And how many people, oh, I'm sorry, what is the population in Cumberland County right now?
Oh, right now, I don't have the number in front of me, but it's one of the biggest counties in the state. Fayetteville is one of the biggest cities in North Carolina. So our population in the county is increasing. Fort Bragg adds more individuals in the county as well. Their soldiers live across the city, and this is a community that continues to grow. So again, it's over 100,000. It's over 200,000. It's a significant population. Again, one of the biggest in the state.
Exactly. So once again, if we only have 8% of 200 something thousand votes or 8% of 300 something thousand votes, then guess what? People are not voting. And if you really want change, you will go and vote. You will tell your friends to vote. You will take them to go vote. If they don't have a vehicle to go vote, if they're not registered to vote, but make sure everyone look at the Board of Election schedules, because it's definitely coming up for our Fayetteville and Cumberland County area. And also make sure you continue to look at our Facebook page as we continue to go live on some of these redistricting situations, as well as, when they come up to this hearing and the lawsuit, as well as other information to update you on how this looks at the General Assembly. I mean, we can't be everywhere, even though we're up at the General Assembly, but we can only tell what happens at the end. And it's good that the news is covering this and that they're not really trying to hide what's being said. I have to give them that, because I was actually kind of shocked today. But but it's good that the media is definitely showing and having transparency. But we need to really, really make our officials uncomfortable. That's what needs to happen, everyone. And I thank you, and continue to follow Fayetteville PACT. Manny, I think Manny has an in-face redistricting education forum, which will have more updates November 9th. See how we do it? So we'll make sure, okay, so we're here on the 3rd, 6 days later, we know there's going to be a lot of stuff going on between now and the 9th, and that'll be at the VFW on Chance Street. Please come, and we'll have some more updates on what's really going on. By then, we'll see how Fayetteville maps are going, because I believe based on their website, they're supposed to have them done by December 6th or something like that, or they'll probably have them done before then, because they're going by the General Assembly. So let's make sure we continue to update, and everybody, let's fight for justice, because democracy is always with the people, and the people will always win, because the truth lies with the people. Thank you, everyone, for joining Fayetteville PACT, and you have a great evening, and let's keep it going.